Welcome to the SGN podcast, where it's all sim, all the time.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another SGN podcast, and today we have a very special episode. We got an OG in the Madden community going all the way back on YouTube since Madden 10 is as far as I could find anyway, so it's been a long time. EA Game Changer, very familiar with all the devs over there, been doing this thing for a long time, fighting for us in the sim community. SimFBallCritic, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Man, no problem. Thanks for having me. And I'm just going to warn the audience now, because I go through this on my show. My camera's here. My monitor's there. So, you know, when you talk to people, you look at them. So I'm going to be looking at him a lot. So my eyes are going to be over here.
No,
so
you're good. You're good. I got my camera on.
When I respond, I'll try to look at the camera so you guys will feel like I'm talking to you. But yeah, man, happy to be here. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
I'm so excited, man. I'm so excited because you're someone who's I've really wanted to pick your brain for a long time. You know, I got to sit down and I got to talk with Hollywood, and I got to have a great conversation with him. Another one, you know, who's been in this for a long time, fighting for us, and Smitty as well. Talked to Smitty, had a great conversation with him, and then, you know, I talked to him fairly frequently as well. And so you were like the last of the trifecta, you know, that I was like, these guys that I grew up on, you know, I could just see just fighting for us and bringing us content for Madden and talking to the devs, man, is just, it's so exciting to just be able to talk to you guys about football and Madden and your knowledge of everything that goes on and behind the scenes, and, you know, the impact you've been able to have and things like that. It's so exciting for me, and I think anyone listening who's a fan of simulation football games in general, like, this is a big deal. This is awesome.
Hey, man, like I said, I'm happy to be here. You know, like you said, my first video on YouTube, and I'm always going to throw this shout out to who we call the originator. It was a guy named Gideon Prime at the time. Apex is what a lot of us know him as. Apex is free, Truth Chasers, pick one. But this was a guy who was making these videos, and you see his little finger on the screen. I'm like, what? Somebody thinks that's the same way like me. So I whipped out my handheld camera, recorded my Madden gameplay, and like you just said, Madden 10 was the very first video, my introduction to YouTube. And, you know, I'm sure we'll get into how it all evolved, but that's where it came from. From there, you know, somebody at EA saw it a few years later. They invited myself and Smitty and the Zoo Effect down to be game changers. We had that little run, and a lot of knowledge that we have about development, lack thereof, and, you know, what the community can kind of expect.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you're you know, going back to Madden 10 as your first content on YouTube, but before YouTube, like how far back does it go where you were working, you know, sliders and breaking down the gameplay for simulation style football with Madden? Like, how far back does that go for you?
Good question. I'll be guessing, but I would probably say Madden 06.
Okay.
The reason why, I'll give everyone my quick horror story. I was one of those guys that you might call the sucker who fell for the trailer of this next gen Madden. I ran out and I bought a 360, and the game looks nothing like what they showed us with Michael Strahan and the Eagles, the T.O. dancing, none of that. And ever since that game, Madden was pretty much broken. If you had the other gen, the prior gen at the time, PS2 version, it was the same Madden that we all, you know, would expect, depth and all. But the 360 version didn't have that. And that was probably my first time trying to, and I didn't know much about sliders other than just reading them and say, okay, let me turn this up, turn that down. That was probably my introduction to trying to get the game to play better. Because before then, I think I could speak for you as well. We all, you know, kind of enjoyed the game for what it was, and we look forward to the next year. But Madden 06 on 360 would probably be, yeah, that's probably where it all started.
I mean, I was going back. My first Madden was. I'm going to date myself a little bit here. I think everyone knows how old I am anyway. But my first Madden was '98 on Sega Genesis.
Oh,
and then
I go back that far too, as far as my first. But back then,
breaking it down for real. Yeah,
like you said, we're dating ourselves. But back then, that's when, and you would agree, that's when oh man, this game is awesome. I wonder what they're gonna do next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we all felt back then. I mean, the game day 98s and all that. Yeah, I played all of those games.
Right, and like for me, so I played Madden '98. I was 10 years old. Just a kid just playing the game, right? And then I got Madden 2000 on PlayStation. Same thing, just a kid playing the game, not really thinking too much of it. And then Madden, when I got PS2, I played Madden 03, Madden 04. And there I was completely opposite how I am now. I would make myself as a character, I'd make a customized player, put my wide receiver. I was just unrealistic as you could possibly be. Same with 04 and Madden 05 as well. But the shift changed for me when I got NFL 2K5 because it was $20.
Yeah, buddy. Yep.
That's the game, because I had a modded PS2. I don't know if you remember this. You could buy a kit online that you could put in your PS2 where you could then burn copies of PS2 games and then they'd play. So I never paid for games. I would just borrow from my friends or rent them, and then I'd burn a copy of them and I'd have them. Yeah. It was the best like $45 I ever ordered off the internet ever, And so I had all these games, and so I did purchase ESPN NFL 2K25 though, because it's $20. That's the game where the whole realism of the presentation, the immersion, and the gameplay was so much different than Madden. And it was at first like a frustrating different because I was like, I can't do this. But then I was determined to get better and learn it. And I was like, oh, that's actually more realistic. Yeah. That's the game that flipped the switch for me as far as, okay, I don't want to go into my franchise and it's like, I have to have 300 passing yards with my quarterback. I have to have 100 yards rushing with my running back. Top wide receiver has to have 100 yards receiving, and that's it. Just destroying teams. And I don't know. NFL 2K5 switched it around for me, and I started doing just playing make Madden sliders. Next gen, like you said, 360 version. But I didn't really get into it like you did until similar to the same time as you, actually.
Yeah. Man. 2K5 was the one, very similar story with me. It's, back then you was always looking for competition, not to beat out the other. You just want to see, what does this game do? What does this game do? And 2K4 showed some promise, but 2K5 was that first game, like you said, that opened my eyes to presentation, because I don't know if everyone remembers, but it was literally ESPN's Sunday Night Football. Everything about it, from the way Susie Kobler would come out and guys riding on the bike and warming up, the post-game interview, the halftime,
showing the crowd,
everything about it replicated ESPN's Sunday Night Football. And that's what really opened my eyes, like, whoa, this game is uber realistic. It had depth. And here's the funny thing. I tell this to people all the time. Later on in the cycle, I kind of gravitated back to Madden because of the way the players moved. I felt like the gameplay was smoother.
It was
with Madden, but 100%. I played both. That was the game.
I think the part that made Madden feel smoother as far as the play moved is I didn't, and I still don't like this. I mean, the last game was all Pro Football 2K8, but the rapidly smashing X for your boost, I don't like that. And I think that, like you said, is what made the movement feel off, because if you would depending on how fast you tap it, the player would instantly go faster and slower and blah blah blah. Cool idea, concept, but I'd rather they tied it to like the trigger and how hard you squeeze the trigger or something, because it's tough to just be smashing that X button as fast as you can, plus do moves and pay attention to what you're doing, and that's where you got that wonky movement. I mean, in my opinion, But So yeah, man. So you got started, transitioning into more simulation football, and then Madden 10 hit, Ian Cummings' baby, and talk to me about that, Madden 10.
Definitely. And guys, I will let y'all know, I knew this was going to happen. I'll cut the camera back on at some point, but like most of us do sometimes, I use a real camera and I forgot to turn it off on my yesterday's show. And of course, I slept my computer, so the USB didn't charge it. So when it charges a little bit, I'll be back. But hopefully you guys can still hear me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, to kind of shorten that story a little bit, the Sim standard was birthed from Ian Cummings. Just to give you the short version, myself, Smitty, Azure Effect, at the time, Ryan Moody. I don't remember if Gedden was at that time. Gedden came a little later. We had a guy named Brozels, who was really good at breaking down footage and all about, simulation. Gideon Prime, again, some of y'all may know him as Apex, and that might have been it. That might have been the beginning of it. But anyway, it came from Ian Cummings, literally making a comment to Pasta Padre. I don't know if everybody remembers him from Operation Sports.
Yep.
And they were talking about these group of people that were nitpickers, nitpicking the game, and they want simulation. I mean, they really were going at us without saying who we were. So that birthed us all coming together. Let's do this channel called the Sim Standard. We did it. And I think it was wildly successful at a moment. Then things started happening. Some people kind of decided not to continue with it. There was a little bit of friction, amongst some of us. Myself, Smitty, and Azure kind of hung in there together. Where, just to tell the quick story, some people felt like the representation of the community wasn't the same as the next guy. And again, people would say, oh, you should do it more like Moody, and Moody should do it more like Gedden, and Gedden should be more. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, what really happened was myself, Smitty, and Azure had the opportunity to go to EA. Once we really saw what was going on there, the perspective changed. Because we found out, oh, it's not the devs. Whoa, wait a minute. I'm thinking these guys just didn't know what they were doing. That's silly me, right? But once we found out the real reason why Madden was lacking here and there, it wasn't necessarily the developers, it was more of the people who run Madden. Of course, your perspective changes. Of course, I'm not yelling and kicking and screaming at the devs because now I know the truth. Then we never stop giving the feedback. It's just that you're not as hostile because now these people, they have the same passion you have. It's the company, it's the conglomerate that's holding the game back.
Right.
And that's what kind of, tore down the Sim standard at that moment as far as 6 or 7 members. And, of course, Smitty and myself, we continued the name. And ironically, we kind of grew even bigger when it was just us because we just kept pushing. And that's kind of the story behind that.
What Madden were you guys able to go and take a look at, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, my first one, because Azure actually went down before, same year, but he was able to go down earlier in the year. It was 2012, so it was Madden 13 was our first time going down to EA, getting to see the behind the scenes and, debugging the game and all that kind of stuff. That was the first one.
Okay. So you guys, I'll have 2 questions here. The first one is Madden 13 is what killed franchise mode as we know it, as far as we lost to create a stadium, we lost to create a uniform, we lost to create a team, like all that stuff. When you guys were down there and being the same standard that you are, and you guys were able to see this game is killing franchise as we know it, what were your thoughts? Were you able to give feedback? Did they acknowledge, we're scraping out all of these built-in features just to have everything interlined so you could be a player, franchise, it's all linked together, but we're still scrapping all these features that people have loved for the last, decade.
Not at that time. There wasn't any real acknowledgement at that time, and I think I understand now why. I guess it put the developers in an awkward situation. Like it's a job for them, and we're just starting to meet them, so they don't want to say too much.
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, when we started developing relationships, we really started getting more real conversation. Like, because I say it all the time on our show, it's people there that we really develop relationships with. Like we go out to dinner with, and we've known these guys for years, and they would tell you stuff that they felt. So we would learn later that they knew that the uphill battle that they were fighting was being able to convince the higher ups of some of these things that may have been priority. And that's kind of what happened with a lot of those features. Is we all know 06 is what stripped it out. I still have no idea why they took that approach of trying to completely rebuild instead of just porting over like other companies did, like 2K.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what killed the Madden that we knew. And they never really made it a priority to go back and grab all of those features that were no longer there.
Right.
We did
some back, but not a lot. And then we got them back. 09 brought a lot of them back, and then 10 expanded on it. We had a lot of them back, but through Madden 12, and then 13 they just got rid of them again.
Yeah.
My next question would be then, so we asked you, about Madden 13, that's the year they shipped franchise. My next question would be, how do I want to phrase this here? I want to make sure I say this the right way. Okay, so they had MUT wasn't what it is now at that time, and it was still in its early stages, so they didn't know it was going to be this money. I don't know what the word is, like just this prolific thing for them, right? So if MUT wasn't what it is now, and it was still in its early stages, and they're still figuring it out and still figuring out how to make money off of it the way they were and stuff like that, what do you think was the reason for like the game to take the turn that it did? Because I understand now, and I've understood for like the last 6-7 years, that once MUT blew up and Madden became more known for the competitive scene, why the franchise and simulation side of things have gotten the boot to the butt, you know what I mean, a little bit. But MUT wasn't there yet, and so I'm just curious, given what you know, or if you have any insight to that, like what do you think was the reasoning, considering MUT wasn't where it's at, for the game to take the turn that it did then?
That's a difficult one, because nobody has ever really come out and said it, but I can kind of, take from it what, through my experiences, what I think may have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like the powers that be of Madden really were big on, and they might still be big on, but they were really big on utilization. If something wasn't utilized, then they couldn't find the value in continuing to maintain it. And we've seen countless things, features or even modes, that they quickly went away from it because they have this, and I'm sure you understand this, but for those who might be watching SGN and y'all don't really know the ins and outs, some of the younger crowd, they have this ginormous database that calculates all of the data. They know how many times people are accessing franchise, how often somebody's button pressing through a menu, like anything you can think of. They have data and telemetrics on all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned while being down there, I've literally heard them tell me, it takes hours and time to support this feature and nobody's using it. I'm just saying a random feature, but I've seen certain things in the game that disappear, and that's what I was told. Well, it's, based on the data, it's underutilized, and it costs support time and support hours to maintain this feature. The next thing you know, it's gone. So my
Do you think
only
that's why they
guess,
cut? Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, do you think that's why they cut next gen stats from Madden 24?
See, I'm glad you went there. I don't know because maybe a lot of people skip through it, but I felt like, see, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole. I feel like there's an audience for everything. I understand from a business what they're trying to say, but not from a game or a company that's that big. Like, it's not gonna hurt you to support some of these little things like next gen stats. Instead of scrapping it, if that's the reason, why don't you build on it? Build on it. Do you guys know that? Because remember, they told us this too. But do you know that they actually were using the RFID technology?
I knew that because when they announced it for the next gen version of Madden, and that's when we had next gen stats, is because they were using the RFID. And I actually had a discussion with one of the devs on Madden from EA. I can't remember his name, but I was asking who's one of the guys that does franchise.
Who now?
Anthony or something like that, or
no? A-Dub. Anthony White does playbooks.
Okay, Anthony. It might have been him, or I don't remember who it was.
John White used to do franchise, but I don't think he was still on Twitter when that came out. The reason why I'm drawing a blank is not a lot of the franchise devs were on Twitter.
We got into a discussion because I felt like Madden speed and acceleration ratings were. We got into a discussion because I was like, okay, if a player runs a 40 at the combine, right? And if they have a mathematical formula for, okay, a player runs a 4.35, this is equal to this rating in Madden. How is it that if that person runs that 4.35 without pass, that based on a play that, and we see them do it all the time, every Sunday, so-and-so had a big, long run, they got a speed bump. How do you get a speed bump if your speed should be tied to the 40 that you ran? How is it you can run a 40 with no pass, and then you have a big play in a game with pads, and then suddenly you get a speed bump? You know what I mean? I just never understood. Yeah. I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like a speed bump because of a play that a person had in the game shouldn't happen. And in fact, I feel like Madden should never update speed during the regular season. I think it should be an off-season only thing.
Right.
Everything else, speed and acceleration, I think should only be addressed in the off-season for the game. Everything else, I can understand. Oh, you feel like you miscalculated someone's strength rating, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But if you're literally doing RFID and you have 40 times, and you're mathematically calculating their speed rating, how can you then, given a mathematical equation, this is the fastest they're going to run is at 40. They're not going to be any faster in pads on the field. How are you changing? How are you giving them speed bumps? I just, and he told me that they have some data or something that supports it or blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, I don't know. The logic to me isn't there. I don't know.
That might have been Equipment Guru that you may have been talking to. Well, his name on Twitter was Equipment Guru.
Yes, that's who it was. His
name is Dustin because he does the ratings. Yeah. So, yeah, it's that's the countless conversations that we've had in the building. Is like we understand, and I'm not one of those people that feel like when I play the game, it's literally going to be 100% real. I get it; it's still a game. But certain things, what I used to always proposition to them was, and this started with Rex. Rex kind of liked the idea, which secretly, that I think that kind of influenced where we got Sim, Arcade, and Competitive from. Because what we would say to them was like, why don't you make franchise the complete NFL experience? And everyone knows that if you play franchise, it's going to replicate the NFL. So things like what you're saying with speed, this stuff cannot happen. You can't get a bump in the rating. None of that stuff will happen until they go off season, they train, and other various factors. And play now or MUT or whatever, sure. Allow it to be just a game. You know, if you want people to play competitive style or arcade style. But I was like, why don't you create something where the game literally plays differently in franchise? And then, you know, a year or two later, they gave us the gameplay styles, and they still didn't hit the way we wanted them to, but I think that kind of birthed that idea. But I'm 100% in agreement with you. It's certain things, even with not even a speed bump, there's certain things that you can't measure in speed that we see players do all the time that it doesn't exist in Madden, like a true Wes Welker type.
Right. And I mean, as far as the game types, the thing that frustrates me with game types is the only one that's really truly different is arcade, right? And I feel like hardly nobody plays on arcade. Who plays on arcade? You're not playing mud on arcade. You're not playing head-to-head on arcade. So unless you're sitting down at home and you're just like, oh, I want to play on arcade for funsies, no one's touching arcade. That's the one that truly plays differently, because the only real differences between competitive and simulation are to make people not deal with randomness of penalties. Yeah, they take out penalties. They turn off fatigue, so everyone's best players are there. They increase quarterback fumbles because of people abusing quarterback scrambles, and the only way they could fix it was to increase fumbles. They couldn't actually fix it from a gameplay standpoint, a mechanics standpoint, because God forbid you have realistic pass rush. It's like it's funny. Kurt Benkert's been starting to do a lot of breaking down plays in Madden, and he does it online, and I love the way he breaks down plays. But at the same time, I'm watching him, and he's doing it against competitiveness, and it's just frustrating me because I'm like, bro, you have 6 seconds to throw because there's no pressure. You are an NFL quarterback. You have to understand that breaking this down like this is fantastic, but you need to do it in an environment where you only have that 3 to 3.5 seconds that you're supposed to have, because the 6 seconds to throw, I mean, it's just not true to NFL. And so because Madden will not stick with the increased pass rush because people complain, they can't adjust, they had to do these little gameplay tweaks for competitive, but otherwise that's it. There's really not much of a difference there, but they won't go full simulation, which frustrates me because the online game of MLB The Show versus the franchise game of MLB The Show is the same. When you play Simulation 2K, it's the same when you go into head-to-head online. It's simulation-based, and you go into Ultimate Team, My Team, I should say, as they called it. It's simulation-based. Now, they have very arcade things there as far as, those cards that they have and the power-ups or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the gameplay is, there's still fouls in 2K competitive. Yeah. There's still turnovers. There's still things like that are simulation, and I don't understand why Madden can't be competitive in simulation. Why do they insist on having it be, we gotta have all these absurd, oh my god, he threw it 80 yards while running to the left, he's a right-handed quarterback, without having a realistic throw motion, or these guys dropping back 20-30 yards, which they've tried to counter year after year after year, but they still can't figure out how to game mechanic counter that, or people taking linebackers and covering half the field. If they can, why can't people play this simulation? Why? I don't think winning Madden competitively in a simulation environment is any less exciting or fun for the player or the viewer than it is in its current state.
Yeah, man, and I think the answer to it, again, this would just be my speculation based on things I've seen, is I'm going to just call them the governing body. Oh, there's the camera again, so I'll be back in a moment, guys.
You're good.
The governing body, it seems like they want what they deem to be fun. Because anytime I've happened to be there at the right place at the right time, where there was an executive there making decisions while I'm there with the devs, it was always from a standpoint of, I mean, that's not fun. Like I literally remember being at an EA play, and it was one of those years, I'm trying to remember which Madden it was, but
16.
It was one of those years, maybe 16, where a lot of people were saying, man, the zones are tight, and man, if you're not doing this right, you're gonna throw picks. And I remember one of the executives coming backstage or in the back where we were, and they were saying, I'm concerned about all these interceptions. People are not going to like that. And I'll never forget Rex looking at us and saying, man, I think we're going to have to make some changes. And I was like, why? He was like, well, we're getting pressure. We're getting pressure from, they don't want the game to seem too hard and, it's going to turn off people. And I'm like, and again, we didn't have to convince him or the devs, but, just to say it, we were like, but you can't compromise that. Like, this game is a household name. That's not going to keep it from selling. That's not going to keep it from being played.
Difficulty levels.
Exactly. But it was stuff like that. I remember being down there when they first introduced inaccuracies in the passing. And I remember the last time we went down, because usually in the thick of things, I would go pretty much about 3 or 4 times a year. And this time I was there like the last point of the game where it's like a final test. It used to be like June-ish or July or whatever. And I remember them saying, we had to tune those inaccuracies. And I was like, why? Same deal. We're getting too many complaints and it didn't show well at EA Play or E3, whatever it was at the time. I'm like, they seem to always cater to the casual, and that has been their issue. And our argument has always been a casual person is going to play just because they like the sport. I'm the perfect example. I'm a casual soccer player or soccer watcher. I don't even really know all the rules, but I play some FIFA. Same thing with baseball. I even played baseball, in school, but I'm not the baseball head. But I will play some MLB because it's the sport. It feels like baseball. I play NHL because it feels like the casual is going to buy it just because it's football. So to me, you should always be catering to the hardcore fan of the sport. How close can you come to replicating the real sport? That should always be the focus.
Right. Agreed. And I mean, don't get me wrong, MLB The Show has their problems. 2K definitely has their problems. I don't play NHL or soccer, so I can't speak on those. But at least MLB The Show and 2K are simulation gameplay at their core. Now, 2K, they've been going to simulation. Not in my opinion, but the online community for market and career, like, this is too real. This is too real. You need to make it so it's less real, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather have it be to the extreme of this is too real than the extreme of where we're at right now. And I will say this, though. I mean, because I don't want to come off like I don't enjoy Madden. I'm enjoying Madden 24 more than I have any other Madden in the last couple of years. But the thing that frustrates the heck out of me is that they're continuing. I mean, they did give us some extra things like with the draft class generator and progression and regression sliders, which I think was a great step forward. But you still have these things in the game that don't work right. Like, how you can tell they've given up on fatigue because they took the meter out of the game. Remember, you used to pre-snap be able to see the fatigue of your players? They took that out completely. Why? Because it was broken.
You can still see it sometimes. I just can't remember the combination. Like, you can only on offense, though.
I thought you can only see it when you're in formations, and it'll show the player's fatigue level when you're going through the formations. It'll show the player's fatigue before you pick the play.
I've seen it on the field. I just can't remember how I did it. And what caught my eye about it, because I just did it not too long ago. I was like, oh, yeah, there it is. And I always kept saying, why can't you see all of the players? It seems like it's only your defense. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's a combination of both triggers. It's something like that, but you'll see it. But it's only when you're at the line. And that, so anybody who hears this, if y'all know, please let SGN know.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, there's a way to see it, but from what
either way, the fatigue doesn't impact you. You don't get auto subs. We're not getting realistic player rotations. Now, maybe on Sable's mod you are, but you know for a fact on the PS5 version,
they got that fatigue working over there.
we know that penalties on the console version, there's only a couple of them that are actually impacted by that slider as far as call rate. We know that the penalty sliders impact gameplay, but you go in and you max out 99 and you play on simulation difficulty, you max them all out. The only ones that are really affected are offsides, false start, roughing the passer.
That's it.
That's about
Face
it.
mask.
Base mass a little bit. Holding's not impacted. DPI is not impacted. The things that you see every Sunday with how many penalties are called on average, in an NFL game, it's double-digit penalties are called on average every single Sunday as a combined unit, right? And you'll play a game of Madden and you might get on simulation difficulty or setting, you might get one or two penalties called for both teams the whole game, and chances are they're offsides or false start.
Yeah, and it's sad, man, because the truth of it is, man, I know we mentioned it a little earlier. It's because of everything that was taken out of the game, and it really will. It's gonna take them, and I hate to keep saying this because we've been saying this for years, but it's gonna take them a heck of a long time to implement some of these things that should be there, only because all of this stuff now is at a point where it needs an overhaul.
Well, do you think we're going to get that because of college football now?
Aha, good segue.
I hope so.
I really hope so, because I'll say what I said on our show Thursday, just to echo it. And I think I did a video about this a couple months ago independently, but to me, I feel like our only chance of Madden really taking a leap is if they are building college football and Madden from the same mindset. Meaning, number one, my dream would be that it's completely connected, where crazy guys like me and SGN that do all of this franchise stuff, if we start a dynasty in college football, it's operating in Madden. So if I'm playing franchise, he's playing his Rams franchise, and all of the storylines and everything is coming from his dynasty. The actual players, whatever they did in that week, it's interconnected. And of course, you want to give people the option. So when you start the franchise and dynasty, you can say, yes, I want these to be connected, or no. But just imagine a world that they do that, and everything that you do in your dynasty will reflect in Madden, the storylines, the players, the injuries, so you don't even have to import the draft class, because that is going to be the draft class. All of that type of stuff. So I say all that to say, if they keep advertising that they're focusing on dynasty, and they know it has to be the experience that we all expect and depth and all of that, I feel like this is the only chance that we're going to have Madden grow in the same vein as college football, because it's you can't tell me that. I would hope they're not going to do the same thing where we're looking at both of these games and we're saying, oh, little brother is better than big brother, or big brother's got more features than little brother. Like, I hope they're still not doing that type of thing in 2024. But to your point, I hope so, man. I really hope that since they've been building this game and they said it's going to be on the Madden engine, which I already knew.
Which means we're still on Frostbite, unfortunately.
Yeah. I hope they've been building something like literally amazing in terms of all that stuff we talked about, presentation and all of that, and it's gonna be pop. It's gonna pop in both games. So maybe this is the chance that they've been able to retool some things since it's on the same engine. Again, I'm not a computer engineer or anything, but I'm assuming you could be building this thing over here that's using the same engine as the other. And now you're building those two, you're building them together. So both of the 2025, as far as how EA names it, College 25, Madden 25 will be the same type of game experience. And hopefully it's something brand new, because they said the rumors say that they've built college football from scratch.
Which, that's what I heard too. And I was super excited because it's like, oh, they're building it from scratch, which means we shouldn't have any more legacy code blah, blah, blah. But then they also came out recently and said that it's built on the same engine as Madden. So I'm wondering, okay, building from scratch and building on the same engine as Madden, they don't, how do you do that? How do you build off the same engine but build it from scratch? Like, it seems like two things that don't work together, go together.
I've been told, because I asked tons of questions when I used to be down there, not specifically these two, but just in the past. I've been told by engineers that the engine and code are two different things.
Okay.
So let's say in a perfect world, we get this brand new experience. So technically, they could actually have a rewritten code and all of that for college football. Is just using the engine, the gameplay engine and animation and all that stuff is using the same platform, but they've rewritten some of the code. Like, I guess I would liken it to, even though it's still not perfect, I think we can all agree, especially in 24, tackling has gotten better. It's taken a step than what it was in Madden, say 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
So even with that, they had to rewrite some things in order to make that work. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, is could they have possibly been rewriting this code for this football game that they're presenting? And this code is going to work for both football games that are released in the year 2024. I really hope so.
Yeah.
It's wishful thinking.
I mean, because what we do know is we should have pretty good presentation, just because they're going to integrate ESPN again, which I think is fantastic. I still don't understand why Madden, EA owns the ESPN license. They put it in NBA Live 19. They had it in NCAA football, but Madden hasn't touched it. And I don't understand why, but I do know we're going to get the ESPN license and integration again, with all the people who come out and said that they are in the game who work for ESPN, which I think is fantastic. And I'm hoping that, we have the leak that we're going to get multiple commentary crews in Madden, which thank you, baby Jesus, because we're on year 8 of Brandon Gaudin and Charles Davis, which there's nothing wrong with them other than the commentary sounds the same as it did when they announced it in 2017. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing fancy. It's just, even though they're recording new lines that don't work together in real life, the immersion isn't the same. I mean, the commentary is smoother and there's more lines than Nance and Sims were in Madden, 13, 14, 15, 16. But Nance and Sims were still better because it was more realistic. Yeah, just the immersion and, you know what I mean? And so, pumped we're getting, but they need new presentation. I don't know. We had realistic instant replays in, with the CBS style presentation they had with the Infinity engine, but when they went to the Frostbite engine, it was like, let's just get rid of these realistic replays and get these camera angles that don't exist. Instant replays. I just don't understand that. Like, these cameras don't exist. You don't see these replays in real life. Why are these replays? Why is this how we're getting replays in Madden? I don't understand.
I hope so. I hope that's a teaser into saying, yeah, we're using the same code and technology, because all of these announcements that we got about who's in college football, and we got the rumor about Madden prior to that. And then, there's Charles Davis, the clip where he's kind of alluding to it. So what I was telling Smitty the other day, I was like, do you think that's a teaser of letting us know that there are some things that is built over here that will be here? Could that be it? Is it a coincidence that if Madden does have multiple commentators, after people have been asking it for years, is it a coincidence that it happens when now they have all of these different layers of commentators for college football? And if it's not a coincidence, does that mean that these two games will basically have all of the same features for its respective league? I hope so.
And I hope so too, but more so than wanting the games to be feature rich. Don't get me wrong, I want the games to be feature rich. but I need the existing features to work properly.
Yes.
We need them to work properly, and for the life of me, I will stand on this mountain and scream it. They need to get rid of XP-based progression in Madden because it doesn't make sense. And I don't know why they can't go back to the old system. No other sports game uses XP-based progression because, in Clint being the gameplay developer over there, being the role that he's in, and being that he was an NFL player, knows damn well you get better from practice, not from playing in the game. Yeah. And you don't go out there and your running back scores 3 touchdowns and suddenly his dev trait goes up. Or you don't have some breakout scenarios where it's like, if you score if you get 150 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, you're a star dev trait. Then the next time you have to do X, Y, Z, and if you do that, then suddenly you're a superstar. Or the drive goals, the ridiculousness of drive goals. Like, every single drive goal should be to put points on the
goal, a touchdown,
or a touchdown, and then at second would be kick a field goal. These drive goals of you need to get a 30-yard completion, or you need to get 20 yards rushing with your running back on this drive. Like, and you could, or there was drive goals like, run the clock out for hold the ball for 2.5 minutes or whatever. You could score on the first play, and you'd fail your drive goal. Like, the unrealism there. Like, I love the idea of drive goals, but they need to be realistic.
Yes.
So if they could get rid of XP-based progression, get us realistic drive goals, I like the idea. And we had this conversation back in August. I love the idea of superstar abilities and X Factor abilities because it's similar to the old Madden weapon system and the badge system in 2K. Yeah. But make and MLB The Show has something similar too. But make them realistic. I don't like the abilities that are absolutes where if you're in the zone, no matter what happens, you can't fumble. Come on. can't fumble. You can't throw an interception. You can't. You're going to have perfect accuracy. You're guaranteed to break your first tackle. Like, it should all just be boosts. Like in 2K, it's you have your badges that, okay, if you catch the ball and you shoot it right away, it's catch and shoot. And if you do a catch and shoot, if you have that badge, depending on the level, you get a percentage boost to your chance of making it. Why can't we have things like that in Madden? Okay, right. You have your badges, like first one free. Okay, and give levels to it. And that's a great way to help distinguish players too, because the ratings in Madden are too inflated, especially at the running back position. But it's like to make them feel a bit more, not so similar. It's just a percentage increase. Okay, if your running back has bronze first one free, he has a 10% bonus of juking his defender, right? But if he has it on gold or whatever they decide to go to, that could go up to like a 20-25% increase. But then you give defenders certain ones things that can counter it, like a tackle one. So then you don't have something be overpowered. And obviously only certain players can have it. So if you get a running back out in space against a defender who doesn't have that badge and he's got one, probably gonna make the man miss. But he gets out in space on a Fred Warner type guy or a Patrick Queen type guy. You know what I mean?
Fred Warner's making that tackle.
Right, exactly. And so I would love for them to just stick with what they have there, but just reshape it. And I understand that these abilities are more arcade and MUT, and I'm fine with that. But then make a separate group for simulation, because you can't have these in both.
No absolutes. I mean, that's the complete killer. And I mean, again, in my personal opinion, the reason why I think some of these things exist is it's their best effort to create maybe an idea with the resources that they have available. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that, I remember one time, and shout outs to my man Shopmaster, he was there for this. Remember one time we were down there. And we were there specifically to talk about franchise. They gathered myself and Shop and forget who else was there, but a few other guys. They know who they are. And they show us this ginormous like whiteboard of ideas and how much time it would take to do this and the allocated hours and resources. So they were saying, hey, if you guys were able to do X, Y, and Z, 3 of these things, which ones would you do based on how much time we have left? And we were saying, oh, that. And then they would show us, yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that because of this amount of dev time, this amount of resource allocation, money, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, now I understand. So my reason for saying that is I think they've known forever that Rex knows this. You know, if he hears this, he remembers me and him had this conversation years ago. Y'all have to go with some type of player likeness. You have to.
You need player tendencies in the game.
You got to do it. I was like,
it has to happen.
Right? So a few years later, we have these abilities and these traits. Cool. But I think the problem is that was the best they could do based off of what resources they were given. And now we're stuck with this system that, okay, it's not priority anymore. And that's, again, that's just from what I've seen there. From above, it's probably not a priority to go back and fix that. Or, because I've literally seen devs, sometimes they'll come down and they'll ask the group that's there, what do you guys think about that? Everyone goes back upstairs, and the one dev will lean over to me and say, hey, I appreciate y'all saying that. I was just having a fight about this upstairs with the bosses. It's exactly what I told them, but now that they heard it from you guys. So for people that don't know, these are the battles that the devs face. It's like, you know, at my job, you know, I'm a senior manager at my job, but I have a boss. I have a VP, and I have people in the C-suite, if anybody knows corporate lingo. I can't do things that I want to do without their blessing or them giving me the money. And that's exactly how it works at EA. They have to get everything approved. And I just feel like, man, with some of these features that are half done, I feel like it's their effort of trying to introduce certain things and then just not getting more resources to build upon it or flush it out the way they want. Like, take the scenario engine as an example. When is the last time we've seen anything change with that? Right. It's the same thing.
Same thing.
And it's not realistic at all.
No. But I'm glad you pointed that out, though, that it's not the devs. It's not. We know that it's from the suits, and I'm glad you pointed it out because a lot of people, they get frustrated with Madden, and I'm one of them. I've posted several things about like, why is this? I'm frustrated. I'm upset. You know. But the one thing I won't do is I won't attack the developers. I know it's not them, and I always try to make sure that I stay polite and courteous. As frustrated as I can be, I can be emphatic about like we need to get things fixed, and I kind of try to do it the way Hollywood does it. Man, he will come out and he will just say, "Look, you guys got to do this, this, and this," and he doesn't bash anybody. He points out what's wrong with the game. He points out why it needs to be fixed, and he explains the logic behind it. And he's kept the respect of the devs to where you know, Clint still reaches out to him and is you know, like, "Hey, let me come on, let me do your thing," you know. And so I try to make sure that I stay as respectful and positive as I can. I try not to do any bad. I mean, I threw up a YouTube short today talking about Madden preseason. I just had a Madden preseason where all 3 of my games were on the road, and I played every preseason game because I'm doing a rebuild series, and I had a rookie quarterback, and I was just trying to play his snaps, and he's number 2 on the depth chart. I'd go in the game, and I'd simulate the first game. I'd super sim until my starting quarterback got out, and I'd play him, and I'd be like, all right, he'll play a quarter or 2, and then my third stringer will come in. No, your third stringers never come in. They only do second string. What's the point of having a preseason where we have third string players if the game never puts them in? And so it's like, and not only that, like I said, I was frustrated. I had all 3 of my games were on the road. And it's just like, this is very, very, very basic stuff. There's some stuff I understand. Hey, I can see how you guys missed this. But this is the very basic stuff where it's like, if you guys actually played franchise mode, this doesn't get missed. And that's where I get frustrated, because it's, how are you going to give me something as a franchise player that makes me happy, or you think this is what I want, if it's being given to me by people who don't play the mode? To find these things, because I would bet that it's a fairly quick, just change in the code. Let's just make sure they're subbing in their third players, right? I maybe it's more complicated than that, but I feel like if you have it set to, rotate players out after, the first game after the first quarter, second game at, the second quarter, third game at the third quarter, right? It wouldn't be that hard to just be like, okay, let's just add in a code of, since it's quarter breaks, right? First game, we have first quarter, second unit goes in, third quarter, third unit goes in. And you just adjust it, you know what I mean? Or halftime, however they want to do it. But that's just really frustrating, to me. But even then, I just refer to EA as a company. I don't talk about any devs specifically, because I know that they're working hard and they're trying to do big things for us. It doesn't always work out, but the game has been getting better. I'm enjoying Madden 24 a lot this year.
Yeah. And it's fair. I always say this. It's fair to, and even I do it, it's fair to criticize them on what they built in the game. That's fair game. Whatever you decided to develop and present to us, you can not bash, but you can say, come on, guys, y'all got to get this to work. That's fair game. But as far as stuff that's missing, it's definitely not always their fault. But I'll give you another quick story about substitution. So me and you share the same pain. Most people may not have noticed this, but if you have a defense like the Steelers, they run a 3-4, and you have 4 inside linebackers, there's always one of the starters remains in the game every time. So if I have, last year the Steelers had Cole Holcomb, Quan Alexander, and Landon Roberts were the top 3, and then they had guys like Mark Robinson. And Landon Roberts will come in, but Quan will stay. It's always the second guy, never subs out. So you can't get your second unit in.
Because the depth chart views it as number 2, right? It should be 1A, 1B. They're both technically number 1, because it's a 3-4. But the game isn't programmed to understand that. So the second person is already considered.
And one of your starters remain in the game. And I promise y'all, I've been saying that to the devs for at least 8 years.
Did they ever respond to that or comment on that? Or
they know. I mean, they've said, yeah, we know. It's just, like you said, it's not as simple of a fix as I thought. It is code based, but anytime you start fooling with code, because I've even said, man, y'all really need, another thing you need to take from college football is, why don't we have mass substitution?
Yes, I was just about to bring that up. College football gave you the mass substitution option.
Yeah, that would solve it. If we had mass subs, and I could say first unit, second unit, third unit, and I can, even if you don't have the rotations right, I could manually say, okay, put in my second group, all second string, all third string. Because your starters will come back in the game too. If one of the subs get too tight, here they come. Right. TJ Watt is out there in fourth quarter of preseason 3, and I'm like, what is going on?
Well, and that's what's funny. So I was just doing this video, like I said, for that Broncos rebuild, and I was just doing the preseason games. I was just playing my rookie quarterback. I wasn't playing on defense. I wasn't doing anything. I took my stars. I took Cortland Sutton. And I took him out of the depth chart completely. I just had a completely different 6 in there. But when the second quarter would come around, he would go back into the game.
He'd go back.
I was like, I took you completely out of this. And so my star wide receiver is out there running with my second stringers because of their depth chart logic. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
I hope they fix that. Now, I would kill myself if I didn't get you to talk a little bit about Maximum Football before we wrap this up here. I really want your thoughts and opinions. I'm super excited about Maximum Football. Micah, the game dev, is going to be on SGN Hub on the 4th. He's also said he's going to come in here and do this with me, so I'm excited to be able to talk that with him. But I want to get your thoughts. The community wants to hear your thoughts, your hopes about that game.
So I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but I don't think it's going to hurt. I was a part of the original beta, before they took this break for a while. And I was wildly impressed with what I saw from a game. See, first of all, because I know SGN does it, and I always do this. Take the game for what it is. You cannot compare this game as still technically an indie game to Madden or to, you can't. Mm-hmm. So don't judge it like that. That's the first advice I would give anybody who sees this video. Don't beat the game up. Look at it as a first time out. Well, not necessarily first time, but still getting their feet wet. Mm-hmm. They have a bigger budget now, bigger backing. But man, I'm going to tell you, from that last video that Micah showed, wow. I mean, what a turnaround from what I played in that beta. Because the beta, you can even still see the potential, but it's what I say all the time, and I'm just being completely honest. In 2024, meaning the calendar year, sometimes it is hard for me to dive into games that are not on a AAA level just because we got these powerful PCs and PS5s and 4K. But when I strip all that away, I say, okay, let me see what the game has. From what I'm seeing in that video, they have did a tremendous job with upgrading the blocking, and the tackling looks better because the tackling was really wonky. You could see the physics, but it was just, frame rates, and they just didn't have like each animation for this, you would see, it wasn't. So it looks like they've really improved that, the quarterback loco, the catching, because it was weird stuff happening in the beta, man. Like I would pass it, the ball would go here and then he's back. But again, I still was able to look at it with very intentional eyes, like, okay, I just want to see what they're offering. I'm not really judging them on how the game plays. This is just to give feedback. But they've come a long way, man. I'm excited for it. I'm going to support it, of course.
Yeah.
I want to say I bought Maximum. Which one was that?
Was it 20?
May have been 20 or whatever. Did they have one in 22 or 21?
I don't remember.
There's only been one game, right?
Yeah, there's only been the one, because there's Access Football that's had a couple now.
So I
wish those would just merge together at this point. Like,
yeah. Truthfully,
they need to just merge together.
I'm fully in agreement with you, because to try to get this community to judge which one of those games is the best, and they're not at that level yet, either one of them. That's a little tough.
Yeah.
Maybe if they came together and more of a dev team, more ideas, but whatever the first Maximum was, I bought it, and I even said it publicly on the Sim Standard show. I was like, listen, I'll be honest, I might not play it that much, but I'm buying this to support.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do the same thing this year. What I might actually play it a little, like it looks like they made tremendous strides. So I am super excited by it, man, because going back to what you and I were saying earlier, we come from an era where I remember Joe Montana football, game day, NFL fever, like NFL quarterback. We had so many games, and to only have one real game, and as much as it doesn't matter to guys like us because we could just create anyway, the licensing really matters on a global scale. And that's why a lot of these games never blow up, because the casuals, they want to see NFL, they want to see college football, so it's, and I will say this before I finish up, it's not going to be on the level of college football or Madden. It's just not.
No.
And I'm honestly, Madden and college football, we haven't seen college football yet, but from what Madden 24, how it plays, and the potential that a Madden game still has if they fully go balls to the wall with it, it's going to be hard for any company to catch up. I'm just being honest. Even 2K.
Yeah.
Because
that game, it seems like that game that was supposed to come out a year and a half ago has just disappeared.
We haven't heard nothing. We haven't heard a thing.
So I can't answer this question for NCA because obviously I think everyone's just going to be super excited to have that game. Expectations are high, but you can't really say I expect X, Y, or Z from a game that we don't know anything about. So we'll just keep it to just Madden. If it was up to you for whatever they call this year's Madden, I think it's just going to be called Madden NFL Football. I don't know what they're going to call it, but if you could have one gameplay feature, we could call it feature or just gameplay improvement added and something in franchise addressed, what would each of those be?
Wow. Only picking one. This is
let's be honest now. If they're going to do it, it's going to be one each anyway. We're not about to get like 4 or 5, overhauls or something.
All right, and make sure you ask your audience this because I'm going to be curious to come back and see the different comments. And I'm going to say this for SGN. Just give us one. Don't say, this. No, that fun of this exercise is one thing. And I'm going to throw one extra thing. I'm going to add presentation as well. So one presentation element, one gameplay, one franchise.
I like that.
I'll cheat and just say presentation. I just hope they focus on it. Just give us not a different coat of paint, a whole different canvas. I want to see something different. I don't want to see the same intros every time and the same cuts. Like, even if it's not incredible, just mix it up. Give us 100 different versions of okay. That will
every time you go back on the field on offense, it'll show your running back stats. It's just the running back.
It's the same. So presentation, people don't realize how big I am on that too, because I always say, even though I'm a sim guy, I'm known for that. Simulation to me is the way a game looks and plays. So it encompasses everything. Presentation, franchise depth, gameplay, all of that is the same to me. But gameplay, wow. If I had to go with only one thing, I think this would open up many different things. I want physics to be on at all times, everywhere, in the trenches, DB and wideout interaction, all of that. I want physics to be on and affect every single interaction.
So it'd be fair to say you want all 22 players to have true step?
Yeah, in a sense.
Okay.
Or kind of like, if you guys remember Backbreaker, I want Madden's physics to be more like that, where it was on all 22 players and it mattered everywhere. It wasn't just the interaction that you're controlling, and it wasn't that the 2-man in Madden can still kick in. And there's ways that they can cheat with that. I've even said that in the studio. Look, just make everything branching. Make every animation have the ability to branch, and then physics can augment. It's going to look like real-time physics. But that's what I would hope. I don't want it. The trenches. Well, all right, let me be more specific. Trench play has to be. That is one of the main features I need right now. And I need the trenches to be more of a physical, controlled chaos situation. There shouldn't be any canned sequences in the trenches. That's not realistic. They don't, even the simple things of when a guy's engaged, he's not looking for the ball carrier. He's just stuck to his. That's not realistic. No one plays defense like that. So that would be my one for that. Franchise. Oh, man. Dang, just one thing, man. Oh, God. All right.
Obviously, we know there's a lot of things that you want, but just one.
I got it, and because this is something that I want to, and you actually mentioned it earlier, so I'll use that one. I want practice to matter.
Okay.
I want it to really matter. Meaning, if if you don't practice, there's implications perhaps in the game that could happen. Your guy might not be fully engaged, in the play, but see, then that's bleeding into another feature I want in franchise. So it's hard for me to deeply explain what I'm trying to say.
Do you want it like Madden 25 next gen, where you would go in and practice scenarios where you could pass or fail, or do you want it like Madden 15, where you had those practice points you had to split up between your position groups? You had film study. You had, if you recently acquired a player, you could send them to the stuff to learn the playbook. And I forgot about all this until I recently dived back into Madden 15. So I'm just curious if that's kind of like which one you're more leaning towards for the practice.
I think I might would lean towards that.
Okay.
More because what I really want is that two things. I want practice to matter where, like you said, it might be film study or something like that, and allocating that time. But then also, I would love for a progression system to be where, what if a guy has a great week in practice?
Mm-hmm.
And he's, we see that in the NFL all the time with our respective teams that we root for. Man, This guy's really coming along. He's going to get a shot this week to play. Stuff like that instead of that XP, because another thing that, not to make you jealous, but on that franchise tool, they have this progression thing that you run it in week 1 of preseason, and that's it. There's no XP throughout the year. You just use the progression tool, and I don't know. I'd have to dig a little deeper to find out what they're using to bump guys, but you'll see guys go up and down based off of, I'm assuming, season performance. But XP is off, completely turned off, and all you're doing is just doing your weekly prep.
Wow.
Now, they don't even let you, the way they have it locked in that particular file is you don't even have like focus players, because they've shut all of that off.
Yeah. Okay.
You can still get your bumps, from, like you can get, I believe you can still get like your in-season temporary bump. But as far as like fully up, there's no updating the player throughout the year.
Interesting.
I'll find that out for you offline and get back with you and figure out what they're using to calculate it. But yeah, I love that. I love it.
I think that's amazing. I mean, that just makes me want to play it even more. Unfortunately, I'm stuck where I'm at with the PC. Just to make sure everyone knows, I'll give my 3 real quick. So from the presentation side of things, my number 1 thing would be weather. They need to revamp weather, rain, snow, fog, wind and wind effects, as well as dynamic weather and lighting. I think the lighting looks great in the game when it's clear skies, but when you start getting into night games and overcast games, I think the lighting is just off.
And weather has to affect gameplay.
Yes, and
I'm with
having
you there,
snow be how it used to be, where it would pile up and you can see it coming down, like basically how snow is in SimFBall's mod. Man, I want that. Fog, God, wind should affect throws. Right now, it only affects your kicking. It doesn't affect your throws.
How about we go Green Bay in January and it's -10, the 100 mile per hour?
Teams should adjust their play call based on the weather, and right now they don't.
Now you're talking.
Yes, so a full-on weather revamp that affects various things. Gameplay-wise, it's similar to yours. I felt Madden gameplay was at its best when it was on the Ignite, because it was real-time physics, and when they went to Frostbite, they left the real-time physics and went more animation-based, which I absolutely hate. And so I would love for them to go back to more real-time physics, and I feel like the jump in power from PS5, from PS4, or just current gen from old gen would allow them to apply a lot more real-time physics performance than what they were capable of doing back then. But real-time physics, I think, is where it should be at. So my big thing for gameplay would be real-time physics.
You remember the Force Impact engine?
Huh?
Remember that? You remember the Force Impact engine?
Yes.
I think that was in 25. That's when You may hear us reference a guy named Vic Lugo. He used to work there. That he was incredible, but he created that system off of Ignite. So it was like based on the force, it would determine who wins and loses the outcome. It was they were going in such the right direction, man.
They were crazy with it. Yeah, they were. And I just don't know what happened there.
Yeah. So I know what happened.
Yeah,
but.
Well, you do. Yeah, I think franchise. It's I would like a revamp of, and they go hand in hand. So I'm not picking two; they go hand in hand. Game planning and coach play call suggestions. Yes. Game planning right now is just worthless, and we have these 500. They tout us. These playbooks have 480, 500 plays in them, but all the coach suggestions are all the same 30 to 35 plays every single game.
Yeah, because it's statistical data. That's why it's only based off of. Yeah, it's based off of. Some of them are based off of community plays, and the other is based off of percentage of success. But they told me that a long time ago.
Yeah, but 400 and something plays, offensively and defensively, there's got to be more plays that because it's really frustrating too when you give us the play call cooldown, which I use, and it'll still suggest plays that are locked. And so, like you said, it just suggests the same plays over and over and over and over again. I'm like, so you're telling me the data says that in your game, there's 35 plays that have a very high success rate, and the rest of them are all dog water, is what you're telling me. That can't happen, because any play could be successful based depending on the scenario, the situation, the look you're getting defensively, and the CPU calls the same plays over and over again too. I'm so sick of seeing 4 verts being called on 3rd and 8.
Oh man, tell me about it.
They gotta address the play calling. There needs to be more variety. Teams need to go further into the playbook. Let me see more formations, more packages, more play call variation, and let me get suggestions. There's a reason we can scroll through the screen, so there's no reason that I should ever have a 3rd and 8 on the 30-yard line, and I'm suggested for all 3 plays, all the way down the same play.
Yeah. Yep.
That should not happen.
It's 3 things. I'm trying to remember. I know one of them is community, it's utilization, it's percentage probability, and it's something else. And that's how that happens, where you can see the same play 3 times, because the community people have used it often in that scenario. The percentage is high, and then it's one other metric that I'm forgetting. But I'm with you, because I thought when they brought in finally, and it's still makeshift version of it, but when coordinators came, I was like, great. Now you should be able to tie play calling to scheme, and the coordinator, make him a functionable thing. And as you can tell, it means nothing. It's just a text.
And I hate the fact that you have the Ravens, like, the teams call plays based on the playbook, not their personnel. Yep. So right now you have the Ravens playbook, which is going to, or the Bears playbook has a lot of quarterback design runs, which is perfectly fine. You go and you take the, what's a good example here? The New York Jets with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, right? And you assign them the Ravens playbook, and you're going to have Aaron Rodgers running read options all day, and taking off and running power plays and stuff like that. The really good example was, I can't use it anymore because he retired, was assign it to the Bucks and Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's going to start running read option scramble plays, because the computer and these teams don't care about your personnel. They just run what's in the playbook. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit of a slap in the face to us. You can have these power plays in the playbook, and you can have these read option plays, but you have 400 or 500 plays in the playbook. If your personnel doesn't support it, don't call it. There needs to be logic there for that. There's got to be logic where the playbook, you don't have to change the playbook, but the Ravens playbook, you assign it to a team that has a quarterback who doesn't fit that style, like they don't have a certain speed rating or whatever, and those plays just are not suggested or called.
It should, and you reusing the Ravens is a perfect example, because the way it should work is how it worked in Flacco's last year. When they brought Lamar Jackson in, they completely changed the way they approached versus what they were doing with Flacco early in the season. And I couldn't agree with you more. It has to, again, man, I use this reference all the time. It's 2024. AI in these games are smart enough to do these things. If 2K can have things like the ACE system, come on, man.
Yes.
Like, it's smart enough. So it comes down to what is deemed as priority in that building, man. And it's really sad, because we both grew up in the era when we believed when they said it's in the game. If it's in the game, it's in the game.
Yep.
And just sadly, we've seen that slowly but surely go away from being further than the truth. Like, sad, man.
When was the last time you actually heard that slogan used with Madden?
That's a good question, because if you notice it, even in the game now, and it's probably been this way for a while, it just says EA Sports. It's in the game. They don't say if it's in the game, it's in the game.
They used to have those intros with the voice guy. They used to do the one with the players where it'd say EA Sports. It's in the game, right? I mean, they had they do it at the Pro Bowl every year. They get the guys to record it for you and stuff like that. They don't do that anymore. They've really kind of gotten away of touting that their game is including things you see in real life. And I think that that's kind of all started with Ultimate Team, because the whole point of Ultimate Team is to give people a crazy, unrealistic experience that is fun. Don't get me wrong. I can see why those plays in that moment would be fun. But when you look at it from is this realistic perspective, you're like, no.
Nowhere near.
Yeah, because I get YouTube recommendations every now and then. It's these guys that do these runs, and they just do this. They run the ball, man, and they'll make the whole 11 defenders on their team. The user tries to control all of them. He'll make them all miss because he just does a start, stop.
Keep swerving.
Yes. And it's just like, they know what that is. And,
it's not fun to watch, because I've said it 1,000 times, man. Like, I've met some of those more, I'll say at that time, more of the high-end pro players. Like, one of the events I went to a few years back, I met Serious Mo and Problem and what's my guy's name? Why can't I? Skimbo, Dubby. Like, these guys know football.
Mm-hmm.
Like Skimbo, I promise you, he could beat a lot of simulation players if the game was fully authentic. Because and even Gibbs and Falls that worked at EA, I don't know if Falls still works there or not, but these guys know schemes and all of that. And they would always tell me, especially Gibbs and Falls, they used to always say, hey, I mean, we only do this because the game allows us to do it. It shouldn't allow me to do this.
Yep.
If I couldn't do this, I would adapt, because I still know concepts. And like a guy like Zan. Zan is a perfect hybrid, because Zan can go fool around and play in that crowd, but he knows football. Zan can play a straight up simulation style football, and you're gonna have a hard time if you don't know what you're doing to combat him in a realistic game, not Madden.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those guys learned how to play Madden, so they don't have to always use not even going to say use their football knowledge, but the game, I always would run to guys like Zan and my man Lights Out and those guys. Hey, tell me what's wrong with this game. Go break it. Because they are good at that. They're good at labbing what doesn't work. And like Relly, when Relly was playing Madden, like they are really good with finding what's wrong. Whereas me, I always tell people the way I find problems is I play the game from a sim standpoint, and then when I see something, weird happening, I go and replay like, oh wait, that's not supposed to happen. But I never lab I'm not the labbing guy to find bugs. I'm always playing from a sim perspective, and when something looks weird, that's when I notice it. But Not like those guys. They know within a day, oh, this zone is broken, this one doesn't work. And I'm like, damn, how did you find that? But they know football.
Yep.
You know, if they made a real game, like, oh man, just imagine how much bigger the Madden league, championships could be if we were watching authentic football and the highly skilled gamers and highly skilled, football acumen guy is winning the tournament.
Right.
It would be wonderful to watch.
Yeah, not seeing guys put punters in at quarterback and win tournaments.
Yeah, man, it's and again, like I said, I know it's a game. It's just I don't feel like you should compromise the integrity of a sport just because it's a game. You can make it a little easier on this mode or that mode, but there's still certain things that should never fly.
Right.
And, unfortunately, they don't think that way, I guess.
And I'm hoping that the return of NCAA football, because I'm optimistic that they're going to have to go more simulation Diamond Dynasty in NCAA football, because what's a person's motive for playing the Ultimate Team mode, which we know they'll have one because they had one in NCAA 14.
Yeah, it'll be there.
But what's a person's motive to play Ultimate Team in NCAA when you have it in Madden? That's going to be way more in depth as far as players and things like that. There's just not going to be. You're telling me I can go play with the college version of a player in their Ultimate Team, or I can just play with the pro version of that player in Madden. So I guess for me it would be a no-brainer. Like, why would I go play with this person when in college where I could just play with them in the pro version of the game? I don't know. I'm hoping that they are forced to stick to more simulation style, and there is going to be competitive community in NCAA, head-to-head leaderboards, whatever. And if it can be successful with the more simulation style gameplay, then maybe the NFL side of it will just be like, you know what? Let's build off of the success in NCAA, where it's proven that you can be successful and people can have fun when it's played more realistically and things like that. So, I'm hoping that's what happens, but
I hope so, man. I mean,
only time will tell.
We're at this point where it's like, man, we shouldn't still be doing this. Like, we shouldn't still be hoping. We're watching every other game around, even the non-sports games. Just we're watching every other game look like a next-gen video game. And we're still, the truth of it is, man, we're still asking for basics. And here's the icing on the cake. A lot of this stuff, even with franchise depth and features, were once in Madden. That's the worst part of it all. Yes. They once had all of that depth and all of the roster management stuff and front loading back. All of that stuff used to be in the game. And we're asking for these basic features that we had way back in the day.
Yeah.
It was a time when I thought Madden, you would probably remember when we were playing Madden years ago, you was thinking to yourself, what is this game going to be like in 2000?
Yes.
2024. It's going to be so real, I won't be able to take it. But we're not.
Some games are like that. It's just not the ones we thought they would be.
Exactly. Like, it's crazy. But I'm still gonna hope, man. I'm still gonna have hope for it because I'm a football guy, more than anything else. Like football and boxing are like my top sports. I love basketball too, but I don't know other sports as well as I know the ins and outs of football and boxing. So those are top tier for me.
Speaking of that, I kind of want to transition into just a couple of the questions as we wrap this thing up. Football and boxing are your two main. So what are the games that you are currently playing right now?
Believe it or not, the game I'm probably playing more than anything is still Battlefield.
Okay.
I love Battlefield. That's just, I'm one of those, I'll even call myself a Battlefield fanboy. Like, while people were complaining about it, I'm not so in the weeds of it. Like, guys like the Jack Frags of the world, like these guys know those games, shooters, the way we know sports games. That's not me. I'm more of a casual player, even though I prefer Battlefield over COD in some regards, because it does have more of a realistic feel. So I play that, and I'm playing Undisputed right now.
Okay,
that boxing game.
I've heard good things about that.
And I've been playing Madden too, now I'm back on PC. But if I had to say what I was playing more, it's probably Battlefield. So I'm probably playing that more than any other game right now.
Okay. When you do have time, I know you're a very busy guy. You got your YouTube channel you're running, you got your family, you got your job. But when you do sit down and you fire up YouTube or Twitch and you watch some of these other content creators, who are a handful that you enjoy watching when you have the time?
Oh man. Well, I watch all of your stuff.
Thank you.
I like the mentality. That's kind of what drew me to you when we weren't communicating. It's like, oh yeah, there's another sim guy, and I like the fact that, and not saying this in a negative way, but you're gonna get what I'm saying. I like that the channel is not that big. It's like me. Some people say, oh, but you got 20. That's nothing in the YouTube world.
No.
Because the reason why I say that is you can tell we do it for the love of it and the passion.
Yes.
We're not really, of course, if our channels blew up, we're not going to be mad. But it's like I don't aim like, oh, I got to make all of this money. And honestly, I could have probably done that years ago. A lot of these guys, the QJBs and all them, used to tell me, hey, Sim, you got to start doing some other stuff. Like you keep sticking to that breakdown stuff. Start entertaining. Years ago they told me that, but it's not really me. It's if it's gonna start feeling like work, then I can't do it.
Well,
so that's another thing I respect about you. I can tell you're really passionate about sim gaming. So I watch you. I watch a lot of podcasts. Anywhere from. Let me think. Who have I been watching lately? I've been watching Shannon Sharp.
Club Shay Shay.
Oh man, So I'm probably watching more stuff like that than gaming. Gaming is really probably, like I said, the people I'm familiar with, because I don't watch a whole lot of gaming YouTube anymore. But I watch, I'm sub to you. I watch all of your stuff, and what else is another obscure thing I might be watching on YouTube? I watch a lot of producers because I do music. I make music and stuff. So I watch a lot of. Those are probably the main things I watch is production stuff and Club Shay Shay, those type of things, more than gaming.
Okay.
Jack Frags, that's one of the well-known shooter guys. Like I watch all of his stuff, and that's about it.
Okay. What is your goal for your channel for 2024 and beyond? And then do you have anything big planned that's in the works? You don't have to divulge it yet, but kind of what's the future looking like? Do you have, plan wise for you?
I don't have anything big planned. However, my plan is, and this is going to sound like a contradiction because of what I just said about not blowing up, but I do want to grow the channel. If most people have watched me carefully, I've kind of transitioned more into doing like my Steelers podcast, and it's more focused on that than it is just gaming. Mixed gaming in, but I always wanted to just show real football stuff in video game, and Madden hasn't really given me that, so I've kind of moved away from that. But I just want to grow it. I want it to be, even with the pod, I want it to be more of an audience, and just grow more in the ecosystem. And that would be my main goal. And I probably have to do more things. Like you said it earlier, I need to start doing shorts and stuff like that to, kind of maybe tap into a different crowd.
I'm trying to get into shorts a little bit. The way that I've been getting into it a little bit is, I live stream on Twitch, and then I will grab those, I'll edit them down, then I'll put them on YouTube a lot of the times when I'm not just making a video straight up for YouTube. I'll take my live stream edits and I'll put them on YouTube. But then when you're streaming on Twitch, you can clip something that's 30 seconds long, and then later on you can go back in there, and Twitch lets you instantly like upload it to TikTok, YouTube Shorts, whatever. And so that's how I've been trying to get into doing shorts a little bit, is just through that, just to try to, like you said, I'm trying to continue to grow my channel a little bit. I'm in a kind of a dead zone in the time of the year for channel growth.
Me too.
And so it's one of those things. Last thing before we let you go, and I'm going to pull it up here because you're going to announce it, but I'll let people see it too. Where can people find you? I'm going to pull this up here. We got your YouTube page here. Where can people find you? They want to follow you on YouTube, all your socials, find your content. Definitely
YouTube. It's the exact same name that you guys are seeing on the screen. It's spelled SimFBallCritic. So SimFBallCritic. Some people try to search football critic, but it has to be spelled like this.
Yep.
Quick story. I used to have a SimFBallCritic Instagram as well as a Facebook, but just pro tip for some of you guys who have a 10-year-old child. If they have an Oculus and you create a Meta account, using your profile because they're underage, if later on they buy a game and it asks for their birthday, it sends a red flag to Meta, which trickles down to Instagram, which trickles down to Facebook, and they suspend the account.
Ooh.
I had to prove age and all of that, but here's another funny story. When I created this, the Facebook account, I created it SimFBallCritic. Well, that's not my government name.
Yeah.
So they took that page down. So
I created Instagram once and I just never stuck with it. So
yeah, so now I created a new Instagram and TikTok, because like I said, it's more centered on this stuff you see behind me. So if you want to follow me there, it's still Basement. Still Basement is the Instagram and TikTok, but just come to YouTube or Twitter or X, whatever they call it now.
Yeah, whatever it's called. Yeah.
SimFBallCritic. Everything is SimFBallCritic. So,
and those links will be in the description of the video. If you are watching on YouTube, if you are on Spotify, just make sure you look it up later and follow. We've got amazing content. If you're a Steelers fan, you're definitely going to want to check it out. If you enjoy Madden simulation gameplay, you're definitely going to want to check it out as well. Great informative videos, great informative content. Appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me. I've been so excited to talk Madden and in football with you, man. I'm so excited. And I would love to say, if you have the time, if we could revisit this once NCAA comes out. And talk NCAA, that would be amazing. So
yeah, I'll be happy to come on. We probably should get you on a Thursday show if you have time. So yeah, man,
I would love to do it, man. Time and place.
Spreading the wealth and love. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for checking out this episode of the SGN podcast. And to everyone, until next time, peace.
Peace.